All right, and how the white blood cell actually attacks the antigen from those viruses or bacteria is through something called an antibody. Okay, so antigens and antibodies kind of go together. An antibody is typically shown as this kind of Y-shaped structure, although not always. And on the ends of it, it has like little sticky ends where an antigen will fit. Okay, so the antigen and the antibody actually bind together. Now, a little bit more information about this antibody before we go any further on that. They also are proteins. Okay, we see proteins coming up a lot in this, and that's why we spent time talking about what a protein is. They are proteins produced by white blood cells. So the good guys in your immune system, the white blood cells, make these antibodies, make these proteins in response to an antigen coming in that it doesn't recognize. These antibodies will then attach or stick to, as I showed you before, these foreign antigens, so the antigens that your body doesn't recognize. And it's like a little flag for the rest of the white blood cells in your system to actually attack that invading cell or virus. Okay, so an antibody is like a little flag or a little signal that says to the rest of the white blood cells, this is a bad cell, this has bad antigens on it, you need to come and attack it. Okay, so the antibody is a signal to the rest of the cells of the immune system. So how does this work in with immunity in the immune system? Well, a person is always going to be sick until the antibody can be made for that antigen of that virus or bacteria that's causing the illness. So you don't get better until your white blood cells start making antibodies for that particular cell or virus. However, if you've already had a sickness and then you're exposed to it again, that means you already have those invaders antibodies in your system. Okay, so old antigens, the ones that you've seen before, for example, maybe it's a cold virus you've had before, you already have antibodies left over in your system to fight off that cold virus. So you might never become ill from that particular cold virus again, or you might have less of a response to that virus. Maybe you're not as sick for as long as you were the first time. Okay, we call that person now immune. All right, so when you get a virus and you create antibodies in response to the antigens on that virus, those antibodies stay in your blood and they help with further attacks from the same virus. Problem is that a lot of viruses are very genetically different. Like there's not just one cold virus. There's hundreds of different types of cold viruses. So we do get attacked by various types of cold viruses and have to make antibodies for each one. This idea of immunity was discovered and led to the production of vaccines. So when a person gets a vaccination, which you guys hopefully are all familiar with, when you're a little kid you get lots of vaccinations and then you get a few more as you get older. When you get one of these vaccinations, antibodies are put directly into your blood system in order to produce immunity. Antigens are put into your blood system to produce immunity. So how does that work? We put a weakened or killed bacteria virus into your blood. Your body recognizes that foreign antigen, creates antibodies to actually fight against it, but doesn't cause any symptoms in you because it's so weakened. It's just a small dosage of that virus or bacteria. And then, as we talked about before with immunity, those antibodies then that have been created for that particular virus remain in the blood to fight off invaders that might affect it later on. So you may have gotten a chickenpox vaccination when you were a little kid. That means they actually put weakened chickenpox virus into your body. Your body made antibodies in response to the antigens that were on that chickenpox virus. And those antibodies are still swirling around in your blood. In case you ever get exposed to chickenpox, your body can fight it off immediately. Okay, a couple of slides here on other things that can affect the immune system, disorders or problems with the immune system, based on this antibody-antigen response. First one is allergies, and I know a lot of people deal with allergies, but maybe you don't completely understand where they come from. What happens in an allergy is that the immune system mistakenly recognizes foreign particles as serious threats. So think about things that people are allergic to: pollen, pet dander, different types of food. Okay, these are normally harmless in the human system. Okay, they're not going to hurt you in any way, but the immune system is a little mixed up and instead sees them as dangerous and launches a complete immune response. Doesn't really have anything to do with antibodies or making antibodies, but it does release something called histamine, which causes all that sneezing, runny nose, watery eyes. That's part of the immune response as well. So in people who have allergies, it's kind of like their immune system is going haywire and responding to non-harmful things in the environment as though they were harmful. So when you take a medication for an allergy, usually what is in that medication is something called an antihistamine, which blocks these histamines, these immune response chemicals, so that people who have these allergies don't get all the symptoms that go with it. And then the last type of immune disorder that I like to talk about is called an autoimmune disease. And if you break that word down into its part, auto and immune, it means immunity against self. Auto is self. So what happens in an autoimmune disease is that the immune system actually attacks the cells of its own body. So remember, we said originally that the body and the immune system is supposed to recognize which cells are the self cells and which cells are the foreign cells and make antibodies against the foreign cells. Well, sometimes people's immune systems get mixed up and they start attacking their own cells, and that causes lots of problems. Probably the most common one is rheumatoid arthritis. So this is a form of arthritis, also shown over here, in which the body starts attacking the cartilage in the joints of the person, whoever has this disease or this disorder. Okay, attacks the cartilage cells, wears them away, and in the process creates these deposits of calcium in those joints, so that person has what we call arthritis. So this is not a very pleasant thing to have, obviously. It's a problem also because we don't have a lot to treat it. A lot of the autoimmune diseases we don't know a lot about, and we're not sure how to take care of them either. Another very common one that you've maybe heard of before is called multiple sclerosis. This is when the body starts to attack parts of the neurons in the brain, the central nervous system. There's a coating on the neurons in your brain, and what your body does is it attacks that coating, those cells that make up that coating, and a person's muscle movements and fine motor movements, like writing with a pencil, for example, become worse and worse because of the deterioration of the nervous system. There's some others I have listed here that you may or may not have heard of. I just wanted to throw a bunch out there so that maybe one or two of them would be something you're familiar with.